Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is going to be like something you have not seen before. So this is the year end for December 2024. And once in a while, I will give a glimpse into what our expenses are every year. And so I have done that for the year. And I'll first say, if you are nervous about tracking your expenses, it is a little, cumbersome. And so to do that every month and look through your bank statements is kind of a pain, honestly, and it takes a lot of time. So we do this, we kind of keep an eye on it throughout the year, but then we really take a deep dive at the end of the year. And I have found a very, very easy way to do this. And so essentially, if you just log into your bank and you can pull a statement for a specific like date range. And so that's all I do. I log into our bank, which is Chase, and then I'll pull a statement for everything year to date, and then I'll export it to Excel and then put some equations in here, and bada bing, bada boom, it's pretty much done. So it categorizes a lot of stuff for me. So I've looked through all those transactions, and my goodness, I think we had close to 1,000 transactions this year. So we're swiping the card 3 times a day on average almost, which is crazy, crazy to think about. But this is essentially everything that we have spent money on this year, and I'll just kind of take a breakdown of where all of our money went. And so, just some background context: my wife and I are both 30 years old. She is working part time as a professor and teaches online classes, and then I have a few different jobs. We have some rental property, so we make some rental income there. I work in the pharmaceutical industry full time. I am remote now, but base salary somewhere around 174,000 roughly. And then I'm also a licensed real estate agent in the state that I live in. And so unfortunately have not made any money there yet this year, but I know going into 2025 that will look a lot better. So yeah, I'm just going to go through kind of each line item, and you can see this is the expense category, and then this is each month for the expense. And so we put $100 a month in my daughter's 529 account, so that was $1,200 this year. For automotive, this is things like we had to make some repairs on one of our older vehicles. And so instead of paying somebody else to do that, I spent the money and did that myself. Same with oil changes. I'll spend the money and take care of that myself as well. So we spent $220 this year just keeping our vehicles afloat. And then bills and utilities, gas, not gas, water, I guess gas if you have gas on your house, but we're all electric, internet, things like that. We spent $7,571 this year, and I'll take a deep dive into that down below. So we'll skip that for now. Car registration, we have 4 different vehicles and 1 trailer, so that was $704 this year for us. Credit card points, we have Chase, I think Freedom Unlimited card, and so we earned $544 this year in just cash back that we redeemed in September, and then we have about $120 on there right now. So that was a source of income from us, nothing major, but yeah. So debit interest. So this is our checkings account, just money. We always have about $40,000 sitting in our checkings account. So each month we're earning a whopping 34 cents in interest. So we made $4 this year just for our interest in that account. Education. This was things like for my daughter, a couple things for myself as well. So we spent $275 on education. Fees and adjustments, these are just minor updates. You can pretty much ignore this. Is $43 that we made. Like we'd go to the grocery store, they'd overcharge us, and then they'd give us a refund or something like that. Food and drinks, this is essentially restaurants. And then some of my work, at the beginning of the year, I was going into work and I was buying lunch at work. I could get a massive salad for $3 or $4. So I spent about $680 this year on salads at work, which I guess depends. To me, that seems crazy, but I guess if that's 1 meal a day and it's a pretty big meal, I mean, that means you're spending $1,700 a year roughly on food if you did that every day for 3 meals a day. But total restaurants this year, $1,422. Again, almost 700 of that was my salads at work. And so we really spent about $700 on restaurants. So about $50 a month on restaurants. So we're doing really good there. I know a lot of people are, $1,000 a month. For gas, this is gas for our vehicles. I was driving into work really heavily through February, all the way through like July here. And then I started working remote off and on August, September, October, this second half of the year. So We spent $3,240 on gas this year, so that should go down probably by half next year, or about $270 a month on just gas for our vehicles. Gifts and donations, this is something we could do better at. We're $265. We'll donate to the local animal shelter, things like that, local charities, and things that we know that the money's going to good places. But to be honest, we're really focusing on just getting our house paid off, and then later in life, we promise we'll be a lot more charitable with our donations. Grocery stores were averaging about $560 a month. That's to feed three people, and that is with basically no restaurants hardly, maybe once a month going out to a restaurant. So $6,700 we spent on restaurants. Health and wellness, this is like gym memberships, things like that, or maybe a prescription that we're picking up from Walgreens or CVS or whatever drugstore that you have. This is pretty much all just prescriptions that we're picking up. So we spent $103. These are things like after insurance for our daughter, for myself, for my wife, things like that. Gym membership, we do not have one. My work, I actually get free gym memberships at almost every gym. And so I just take advantage of that. For home loan, I'll jump back to this category. Our base payment is $2,813 a month. Our main goal is to pay off this house. And so, yeah, we spent a lot of extra money just knocking out the mortgage on this one. So about 100,000 of this went to pay down the principal, and then about 21,000 of this went towards interest. And so we're spending about $10,000 a month just trying to aggressively pay off our house, which is, when you think about it from that perspective, we're doing phenomenal in that regard. But this should really probably be around, for maybe $30,000 roughly that we would have spent on our home loan. So 90,000 was just extra payments. Then home repairs. We built our house about a year and a half ago. In spring, we had some big, I wouldn't call these home repairs, but we essentially redid all of our, not redid, did for the first time our flower beds and everything out front. And so I had to till all that up, put landscape fabric down, buy plants, which was like $700 for everything we needed. I had to put rock down. So that was like $1,500, and I did all that myself. But that was these expenses here. Everything else, yeah, just minor repairs around the house. We had a plumbing leak that I had to take care of in February or March, again on a brand new house. And then we had a couple smaller things towards the end of the year as well. And then we've built some like raised garden beds and things like that. So $3,500 I've spent on home repairs. And then income. So throughout the year, we've made some extra income. Like in January of last year, you can see I made $1,700. This was for selling firewood. And so I probably sold, I don't know, 20 ricks or thirds of a cord of firewood. And then same thing with this $400 here. So these are just odds and ends things, money that we've made throughout the year. So an extra $9,000 just from doing those odds and ends things. My wife left her job in February, and so she made $6,539 for getting paid out on her PTO. So that was income there. She's still adjunct teaching, so you can see all that income here. This is just take home pay, so $9,841. For my income, my take home pay was $138,000. And then our internet, we have Starlink internet, and so it's $120 a month. It's the only internet that we can get where we live, and so that was $1,400 this year. We live on 66 acres, so we have a separate loan for that, and so that's $1,591 a month on a 15-year fixed at 3.7%. So that was almost $20,000 we spent on that this year. And then we get to the interesting stuff. So we have the invasive species program that we are in, and basically we hired this out. So we have 66 acres, and it was very heavily invaded by invasive species like bush honeysuckle, lespedeza, multifloral rose, tree of heaven, all that fun stuff that you really don't want on your property. The government will give you grants if you eradicate all that stuff from your property and show them and prove to them that you are actually doing the work. And so this year they paid us $28,000 for killing off the invasive species. And so you can see in two separate payments of 14,000. Essentially, I started it for the first couple months here in like January and February. There was absolutely no way that I could conquer that myself. It became extremely evident. I was just going to keep the 28,000 and try to get all that stuff done throughout the year. Just not possible. So we had to hire somebody else out. And so everything that they charged was 15,000 to get done with the first year, and we made 28,000. So essentially, I'm pretty pleased with what I did here. Um, we made $13,000 to hire out the work to be done, and I didn't really have to do anything. And with some of that money, we sold off a four-wheeler in, I think, in July for 5,500, maybe 5,000, and then we bought a used Polaris Ranger, like side by side or buggy or whatever you want to call them. And so, yeah, that was that was an expense for the invasive species. So Moving on, realtor expenses. So in February or March, I started to get my real estate license. I bought a new computer, which we needed anyway, and then I signed up for the classes for were $125. I actually just renewed them. I had tried to do it 10 years ago, and so I found the program I used 10 years ago, and I was able to renew for $125. I studied for about 3 or 4 months and ended up passing the test in July. I had to pay $53 to take the test, and yeah, I got my real estate license. Since then, it has just been an absolute money drain, which is just part of it. If you're a good real estate agent, I mean, you can make a million. There's a couple people in my office that make over $1 million a year. They have for the past 30 years. If you were somebody like me who's just getting into it, it's a pretty brutal business. It's a lot of expenses, and you can sell 10 or 15 houses a year and maybe make 20 or 30,000 bucks. It's really not that lucrative, I'll say. And so, yeah, just to pay all my membership fees, that was about $3,000 this year to just be a real estate agent in general. Professional services, this is $175. I'm trying to think. Oh, this was for my tax return last year. We had to pay somebody to do our tax return because it's pretty complicated. So that was $175. Shopping, I'll kind of circle back to this too. This is just miscellaneous things like clothing, Amazon purchases, but we spent $6,600 there. We had a tax refund last year of $15,000, and then we've spent about $30 on basically travel. We didn't travel or do any vacations this year, so that's mainly if we go to the city close to where we live and need to park downtown, it's usually $2 or $3. So we probably did that 10 to 15 times this year. So total income was 208,000, and we spent 199,000 of that. And I'll kind of quickly, if we take out some of the mortgages, that's probably a little bit more reflective of what our actual spending was. And so, well, if I take it out there, so we probably actually spent 77,000 and then made $208,000. So again, we saved about 120-ish thousand dollars this year. So yeah, doing really good. Our expenses are fairly low. Most of our expenses go towards housing, probably 30 to 40%. So yeah, you can see each month if you want to dive in, what our actual savings were. Our goal is to basically break even and pay everything else towards house number 8 or whatever we want to call it here, our home loan right here. So bills and utilities. Um, each month, this is a deep dive into each of our bills and utilities. It's kind of there's two broad categories above. And so I really want to know, they don't tell me much. Like if I look at bills and utilities, okay, we spent $7,500. Like what actionable things can I actually do with bills and utilities? And really, I mean, not much. We have an Amazon account. We spent $139 this year for Amazon just to have that membership. I can't really cut car insurance. That cost us $1,100 this year. Our electric bills, we can try to dial back on electricity, but some of you may think this is outrageous. We live out in the country and we have one electricity provider, like most people in the United States, and they charge you an arm and a leg every single month for electricity. And so we are trying to be better about conserving electricity. Home insurance is $1,233 a year. That is, I have called and competed with home insurance so many times that I can't believe it's this cheap, honestly. If it stays that cheap, I'll be pretty happy. Um, Things like rental expenses. So some of those made their way into our checkings account when the trash company messed up at one point, and so yeah, some of that had to be taken out. So that was 275 that was in there. Streaming services, we have Disney Plus, that was $53. Taxes. These are things like, I'm trying to think what taxes were. Oh, this was property taxes. Apologies. So this is going to go up significantly next year. So I put us in a classified forest on our 66 acres, and we pay taxes in arrears in the state that I live in. And so, yeah, it was $837 this year for taxes. They've assessed our house at like 700,000. So I know for a fact next year I'll probably have to pay $6,000 a year in taxes instead of 800. For our water bill is fairly cheap. We have a septic tank, so we don't have to pay sewer, but it's somewhere around $30 a month for water here, which is, yeah, I can't complain about that. And our last category, shopping. This is just, again, a pretty broad category. We spent $6,658 in all year on shopping. These are so like miscellaneous Amazon purchases. Like some of them were for gifts on Christmas or something my wife and I, our daughter wanted. We spent $2,600 this year on just Amazon purchases. We have a dog and a cat, so they need dog food and vaccines and things like that. So $554 on the pets. Just miscellaneous shopping, like new shoes, new clothes, hats, scarves. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Was $1,820 for just odds and ends things that we purchased that we probably didn't need. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, if our income's $208,000 take home pay and we're spending less than 1% of it on shopping, that's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with that. Subscriptions, $500 and $450 for our subscription services. Venmo and PayPal. This is kind of I wouldn't say my wife's account, but things like where, if she pays her sister or her brother or her mom or things like that, it usually happens through Venmo. So that was about $800 this year. We made one withdrawal. I hung out with some friends a couple months ago, and I'll say I doubled the $40 here, so that's actually $80 that I got back on this. But that's a longer story. And then I do play Xbox in my free time. Usually early in the mornings or late at night. And so yeah, if anyone wants to play Xbox with me, just comment down below, and you can send me your gamer tag. But yeah, so the Xbox Gold membership, I think it is, or Live, is about $20 a month now. So spent $300 this year on Xbox. So yeah, and that's basically my entertainment and all of our expenses for 2024. So it's a mixed bag, honestly. On one hand, I look at this, we spent $77,000 on just, things to survive, food and drinks, gas, groceries. I don't know if I mentioned the grocery category. I guess I did. $6,700, 560. I did mention that. So I mean, really not horrible, I guess, especially for the house and things that we live in. So we're saving about $120,000 a year. That may change a little bit next year with my wife's income. But yeah, let me know what you think. Are we outrageous in any category? How does this compare to you guys? Is there any improvements that you see that I could make from this? One of our goals going into 2025 is to reduce our spending by about $20,000. So we'll have to take that down from about 70,000 to 50,000, and we're pretty sure we can easily do that. A lot of this was for the invasive species program. That should be $6,000 next year, but I'll make a little bit less than the 28,000. So our expenses will go down there. We definitely won't be buying a Polaris Ranger, and so yeah, we can almost reduce $20,000 just by these two categories. So probably overall expenses, maybe $50,000 a year is what it takes to keep our household afloat. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. Different style of video from me. So yeah, curious your all thoughts. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks everybody.